Good evening and welcome. Thank you for coming. It is Monday, February the 13th, 2023. It is 6:30 p.m., so I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Burnsville Planning Commission. Tonight's Planning Commission meeting is being held virtually by Zoom and in person. As chair, I'll be leading tonight's Planning Commission meeting, and the public is welcome to participate when called upon during the meeting. Members of the public can attend either in person or via Zoom. And additional instructions on how to participate are posted online at burnsvillemn.gov under the public meeting calendar. As usual, tonight's meeting is also available for viewing on BCTV and on the city's website. If you're unable to participate this evening and would like to submit public testimony, you still can do that. You can just email your comments directly to city staff, or you can mail them right to City Hall. We can participate both online using zoom.us/join. And you can type in the meeting ID 823-0076-8211. Once you're logged into the meeting, please use the chat feature to let the moderator know which item you wish to speak to. Sometimes there's audio issues. If you have that, you can back out of Zoom and then rejoin. That usually fixes the problem. You can also participate in tonight's meeting by calling us at 651-372-8299. The meeting ID again is exactly the same as for the Zoom, 823-0076-8211. For each public hearing, I'll open up a time and callers can speak to that item and give more instructions at that time. Your call will be muted until then. Please note there might be a delay due to technology differences. If you're speaking by phone, make sure your computer or your TV is on mute. With that, we can transition on to the agenda. Commissioners, do you see any changes in the agenda you may have received? Not seeing any. I'm going to turn to staff. Staff, any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
No changes. All right. With that, I would take a motion for the agenda. Commissioner
Motion
Braddock.
to approve the agenda.
Motion made to approve the agenda. Do I have a second? Commissioner Wad.
I'll second the motion.
Second by Commissioner Wad. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. Our last meeting was January the 23rd, 2023. The notes of that meeting would have been in your packets. Any changes to those meeting notes that you saw? Seeing none. Staff? No changes?
No changes.
No changes from staff. I would take a motion to accept the meeting minutes from the 23rd. Commissioner Watt?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Watt. I have a second. Commissioner Timmerman?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Timmerman. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And no one opposes. All right, we're in the middle of a public hearing. It's the application of Studio M Architects Incorporated for a plan unit development amendment for 15,046 square foot, two-story addition to the west end of the existing building formerly occupied by Gordman's at the Mall, located at 901 County Road West 42. Here to speak on that is one of our city planners, Ms. Madden.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. So as mentioned, this is a continued item from our last meeting where we did open the public hearing to continue to this evening. There were some items that we needed some revisions on as a city staff to review. We do have that information, and we'll move on with a formal review of this item with the Planning Commission this evening. So as stated, this is the former Gordman's space at the Burnsville Center. The subject site is the north anchor of the Burnsville Center Mall as part of the Burnsville Center Plan Unit Development. Right now, it's home to Dick's Sporting Goods, Panera Bread, a couple other kind of spaces in this building as part of the mall. The part that we'll be looking at this evening is related to the western wall, which was the former Gordman's space and, various stores formerly as well. So this is that lower level space of the northern building at the Burnsville Center. The site itself is zoned and guided mixed use, and it's within that Burnsville Center Plan Unit Development. This parcel itself has been part of study related to the Burnsville Center Village and part of our comp plan implementation. And in 2021, the site itself, the portions of the mall site were platted into new kind of boundaries and subdivisions to create about 10 new parcels. This is one of the parcels that was sectioned off and was affected by the right-of-way that was was acquired for a future Aldrich Avenue extension. However, again, we're looking at this evening is some improvements to the west side of the building. So following that subdivision that created this new parcel boundary here at the Burnsville Center, the site has been sold, and we do have some proposed plans that are as part of what we're reviewing tonight, as well as some internal modifications to the space that are not part of this application. So there is a new tenant for the primary lower level space that there's been a little bit of kind of news about as we talk about this particular proposal, but what we're reviewing this evening are the exterior modifications to the building and not the interior remodel of the tenant space, which is by a separate applicant and separate later permit approval. So this expansion that we will be looking at this evening, as mentioned in the title, it's a 15,046 square foot, 2-story addition to the building. It is essentially an updated facade bump out that also accommodates space for 3 new restaurant tenants. And then it just kind of some exterior enhancements to that main entrance that faces the west portion of the building. So shown here, we've got the removals plan and the site plan. So just to show on the left side of your screen, kind of the existing conditions of what that entrance in front of the building looks like and the kind of existing landscaping islands that are proposed to be removed as part of the work. There's also going to be changes as the building bumps out, so does the front sidewalk and plaza area. And one of the kind of larger, maybe exterior enhancements as part of this is the sidewalk stairway connection to the north part, which would connect pedestrians on the outside to that Dick's Sporting Goods space and some of those other tenant bays there. So this is a pretty significant grade separation that exists there. So the stairway would be a new kind of benefit to the site as part of their changes. So there are some trees that are proposed to be removed within the landscaping islands that will be replaced. There's some tree protection that will also be installed on other trees in site as related to the exterior changes and construction. Not pictured here, and which I'll get to later, is a reason why the application was continued from the last meeting was a utility location. So that's on a later utility plan in greater detail and not on this removals plan. Kind of showing the new addition here. That's the 15,000 square foot. It does also include new entrances to the building. So while there will be the tenant spaces that have access to patio seating area and this kind of new enhanced entrance, there's also the main entrance for the kind of shared space, a shared lobby, and that new interior tenant space, which is proposed to be a future grocery store. Additionally, there are exits onto the patios from the lower level restaurant tenant spaces, and then the upper level of the addition has a northern entrance in this location here where you can see kind of some pavers that'll be placed. So the upper floor will be one tenant space of one of the potential restaurants as part of the build out. So shown here is a preliminary code plan for the internal spaces. So you can see here on the left is showing generally access for the upper level tenant space that would have an elevator and stairway for that internal connection to the 2 lower levels that have there. So you can kind of see here the doorway exits to their individual outdoor seating access to the front. And then as mentioned, there is later an internal remodel that's proposed that's not included within this plan unit development amendment. Shown here is additional information showing how the space will be divided. So on the lower level, the addition is smaller. The upper level does expand over what is currently the loading dock area, and within that loading dock area, there'll also be some changes shown on a later site plan to the trash enclosure, which will be expanded and modified as part of this. But generally, you'll see the internal area has that shared lobby and stairs to connect internally, and then the exterior access between the 2 floors is through that new stairway that they are proposing. So shown here are the renderings of the exterior materials for the proposal. The project exceeds minimum standards for architectural materials in a number of ways. Generally, the materials themselves, that the combination of brick, stone, and glass is equal to or exceeds 60% on the facade, which is a benefit to the project. Significant changes here with the use of the stone, accent metal, and then high percentages of glazing on both the facade that faces the main parking field, as well as some additional kind of tall, high-level vertical accent glazing on the northern entrance that they're creating for one of the restaurant tenant bays as well. Generally, your attached architectural review tool will show you kind of the areas where this project has exceeded some of the minimum requirements of the city code in areas beyond just the base materials that they're using. And that's generally defined by the varying roof lines and the established corners and entrances of the building, and the combination of horizontal and vertical, I just combine those, features as well as the established base through the patio area, middle, and then establishing accent roof lines as well. So kind of shown here is the actual kind of a breakdown. You aren't able to see the notes here and what they're pointing out. I do want to note, so this area that you can see here, that is that loading dock area. So where they're showing a different texture of material is kind of hidden, tucked away in the loading dock. That's the existing wall that'll be painted to be consistent with what the new kind of color scheme is, as opposed to kind of the earth tones that are there now. So it will be updated, but not really be visible as part of the project when the building addition is constructed. Shown here is where the trash enclosure is located. It will be up against kind of that existing retaining wall, and then there will be two walls on either side of the enclosure as well to provide screening. So shown here, you can see the bicycle parking that is proposed, and kind of a different look at that outdoor seating and plaza that they'll be including. Some of those amenities at street level that also in the architectural review tool are considered areas where they're enhancing beyond the minimums of the ordinance standards. So shown here is the landscape plan. So they are making changes to move the two parking islands that buffer the rows to further back, since the building has an addition, and then the enhanced kind of sidewalk and plaza area in front of the entrance as well. So the current landscaping islands are minimally landscaped. There are trees that are in place from a previous kind of updates to the building as different tenants moved in and out, but there isn't any ground cover or other kind of shrubs within the islands. So the new islands have an increased amount of landscaping materials that'll actually be present as part of their design. Additional updates to the building include new building perimeter landscaping, which has not been in place on many areas of the Burnsville Center facade. So there'll be landscaping areas in front of their building in between seating areas. You can kind of see the darker areas where it shows that shrubs would exist, and just overall improvements to the number of plant materials that are present on the site, and kind of enhancing that street level look and feel of the mall building here. So they'll also be installing 2 trees per landscaping island instead of the existing one. So we're happy to see kind of some more trees there. That was a big focus area as part of the Burnsville Center Village vision to enhance landscaping materials and green area. So I've changed the orientation here so that I could try to show you the numbers. You may not be able to see them after all. This is the photometric plan showing kind of the bleeding of light based on their fixtures. So to the right of your screen would be the north of the property. What I want to note about this is that they are meeting the requirements for bleeding at the shared property line, except for in one area, which is kind of south property line and near other parts of the Burnsville Center property where it's existing and there are no new light fixtures proposed. So I just wanted to note that where you are seeing on the plan in your packet that it exceeds 1 foot candle of bleeding at the property line is existing and is related to the entire building's existing exterior light fixtures and not related to the new fixtures that they are proposing as part of their development. So shown here is the utility plan that I mentioned earlier, where there was is currently a sanitary pipe that does receive kind of service by the city, probably annually, and that may have been disruptive to the plaza and patio area. So the request from our staff reviewers was for that to be moved, and then there's a condition included as part of this application that a new easement be dedicated over the relocation. So you can see kind of in this area where the new proposal alignment is for that pipe. So shown here is the signage plan. Generally, it's a site plan of the property where they've identified two locations where new monument signage and pylon signage could be located. So this is the area of the proposal where there are deviations from the city code. So the city's sign ordinance, well, first I'll show you. So shown here is a proposed location for a new pylon sign, and shown here is a proposed location for a new monument sign. And then shown here is an existing monument sign entrance to the Burnsville Center. So the zoning ordinance has requirements for when properties have more than one freestanding sign, in that additional freestanding signs must be constructed as monument signs, no taller than 6 feet. So they would meet that requirement if there was not an existing sign present, that the pylon sign and the monument sign meet height requirements for the zoning ordinance. Where there are some adjustments and some support of the deviations with conditions as part of this proposal is the location of the existing entrance sign. It's an aging monument sign that just says Burnsville Center on it as kind of an entrance to the site. So the condition that staff is proposing is that they be combined into one sign so that we can reduce sign clutter along County Road 42. And have the sign be combined into one. It can be in either of these locations and still meet the setbacks for County Road 42. And then there would be the secondary deviation that's requested for the two signs to be closer than 300 feet to one another, which is another zoning ordinance requirement for when there are multiple freestanding signs on a property. So we've seen deviation requests for that distance reduction. Relatively recently, within the last year, the Starbucks and the Taco John's location received a deviation for a similar distance reduction between two freestanding signs. So they also are showing where wall signs would be placed on the building, and some of that was shown on their renderings of their exterior materials. With the wall signage that they're proposing for each tenant, in its current kind of shown as potential tenant signage, it does meet what the zoning ordinance would require, and we would review that administratively through the sign permit process before those are installed. There was also, when Gordman's entered the space, there was a deviation to total square footage of signage that's allowed on this facade. So they do have some flexibility with their total square footage of signage when they come forward with their sign permit application for the wall sign. So we would be looking at that as well as just underlying ordinance requirements for wall signage. Shown here is a sign showing, or a plan showing proposed pedestrian connections throughout the mall into County Road 42. Shown in red here is not included on other plans within their civil and architectural set. So another condition that staff has included as part of this application is that this pedestrian connection shown in red be constructed as part of this application and included in the plans with the building permit application. So there are sections within our parking ordinance that talk about pedestrian connections within parking fields that connect building storefronts with other key sidewalk areas or other businesses, other areas of interest, and as a connection to County Road 42, whether that path is straight to County Road 42 or whether it cuts over on this existing crosswalk that is here. They have the flexibility for that, but we are requesting that a 10-foot trail, a 10-foot pedestrian path with landscaping alignment is constructed as part of the building permit application. This would also be consistent with the recent changes to the Cobblestone Court plan unit development, where there was the grocery tenant that's been under construction, that they did install a new sidewalk connection throughout their parking field to connect their storefront to the existing sidewalk infrastructure. straight through the parking field as a access for the customers, and as well as total pedestrian connection throughout the site. Additionally, adding new pedestrian ways and connections to County Road 42 would be implementation of the Center Village vision, as well as multimodal plan connections and other mixed-use goals within the comprehensive plan. So shown here are benefits and deviations included within the plan unit development. So as mentioned, there are 3 deviations that are included related to the signage plan to allow the new 24-foot freestanding sign, new 6-foot monument sign, and to allow the new freestanding signage to be located closer than 300 feet in distance from other freestanding signs, which we do support with the conditions included as part of this recommendation, which we'll get to in a couple of slides. Land use benefits to the amendment. The proposed commercial restaurant uses are compatible with the existing nearby uses and would be a benefit to the mall as well as to the mixed-use district. The redevelopment of the vacant space can bring new visitors to the Burnsville Center, increasing economic viability of the mall, which is a goal of the comprehensive plan implementation as well as the Center Village vision. The proposal is consistent with those Center Village vision goals of a diverse and creative retail mix within the Burnsville Center. And then the proposal provides an outward-facing space for 3 new businesses at the mall, so that accomplishes other goals from the vision of turning the mall inside out and providing exterior visibility of destinations within the mall. And as far as zoning benefits, the inclusion of bike parking spaces for increased multimodal access to the site, and that the facades impacted by the update are constructed with 60% or greater enhanced building materials of brick, stone, or glass. As architectural benefits to the proposal. Other considerations that you saw in this report as well as in the slides this evening. So there are engineering related improvements related to partial redevelopment of that parking area and utility services to the storefronts, and that existing sanitary sewer line is to be relocated out of the expanded patio area and a new easement dedicated. The building and fire departments will, through the code review process, be reviewing this application at time of building permit, verifying access to the site, entrance, exiting, things like that. So the remodel of that existing lower level space is not included in what we're reviewing tonight, and so that'll be completed by separate permit. The proposal of this new addition and facade update is consistent with the comp plan goals for the Burnsville Center area through the redevelopment of vacant and parking field space with the enhanced materials and design, improvements to the plaza and additional pedestrian access. We feel that this adds interest to the Burnsville Center property and is accomplishing those goals through the study that we've been completing in the last 5 years here at the city. And additionally, just within the mixed-use zoning and land use of the site, land use goals to provide transit access, pedestrian and bike connectivity to parks, employment areas, businesses. We feel that the proposal is consistent with that goal, and that the connection to that County Road 42 to the storefront would increase connectivity and be consistent with those goals as well. So with the conditions included on your next slide here, we are supportive of the application. So we're recommending that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the application. So there are 9 conditions here as part of this. And the first is, of course, the standard that we use, that the conditions and approvals of the previously approved PUDs and CUPs on the site remain in full force and effect. The second condition is related to the trail or the sidewalk connection, the pedestrian connection that they were showing, that it be completed with this phase of development, delineated by a change in landscaping, and the plans showing completion of the enhancement be provided at time of building permit. Third condition, another standard, that the tree removal permit be issued prior to any work on site. Conditions 4 and 5 and 6 are related to signage on the property. So condition number 4 is related to the request that the pylon be incorporated into the existing Burnsville Center monument sign to reduce sign clutter. Condition number 5 is related to, which I did not mention, I'll go back to this site plan. They are showing it in this location, which would potentially be within the path of where this pedestrian path could connect. So the condition is related to that the sign be moved or that the pedestrian path be moved so that they are not in conflict. Since we don't have this pedestrian path as part of their full civil set, we don't have like a formal location of it, and they do have that flexibility. So condition number 5 is related to that they have the flexibility to move the monument sign to a new location or to move the path slightly to not interfere with that, but that the deviation for the sign would continue based on this condition. Number 6, the no exterior signage be installed without issuance of a permit. 7, for exterior lighting to be downcast and shielded on all faces, which is the standard condition that we use in our review. And then the 2 engineering related conditions, the first, that any outstanding comments be addressed to the satisfaction of the city engineer, so that memo is included in your staff report. And then the final condition related to the rerouting of that sanitary sewer line, that a new easement is required to cover the relocation of that pipe. So with that, I can stand for questions, and as mentioned, this is a continued public hearing from our last meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Madden. That was wonderful. Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for either Ms. Madden or Sarah Lloyd is here for the city engineering? Anyone? Commissioner Braddock?
I have a question. I don't know how relative it is, but when you start talking about multimodal and like pedestrians, I think of wayfinding. Is there any any consideration for wayfinding, or was it in the discussion at all?
That's a great question. Wayfinding was in the discussion, and they do have on their signage plan a few locations where they talk about wayfinding signage, whether it's existing mall wayfinding signage and the ability to include their own. So those small informational signs are you don't require a sign permit for those of that size. So they do have the flexibility to install them, and it was part of our discussion in how we can use wayfinding to also route to this parking field, since it hasn't been in use for this particular space for a number of years while it's been vacant. So that was part of our discussion, and it's part of their overall plans, but isn't necessarily something that's identified on these plans right now.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Timmerman?
Ms. Madden, will you go back to the slide with the sidewalks, the red sidewalk? Thank you. You knew I was going to ask. There's a kid and family-friendly business just next to this property, and I'm curious the considerations that have been put into routing pedestrian traffic, because even as it stands right now from those islands, it's kind of unsafe, and there's not a lot of traffic there because there's really not much going on other than that kid-friendly mouse business. Not the big mouse.
No.
Can't call it Minnie Mouse either.
No, it is a big mouse. It is a mouse.
So I'm just kind of curious about the discussion about, I see some plans for the sidewalk kind of connecting with the Burnsville Center property, which the Chuck E. Cheese is next to, but I don't know. I guess I'm concerned about people crossing, about crossing from the parking lot to that business, and then also, if it seems like it's a different property, so I don't know how you put a requirement on that other than maybe from the parking lot to this business and then the existing connection to the Chuck E. Cheese. I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking about kids, families, safety, because there's going to be way more traffic here now.
Yeah, that's a great point. So connections to the adjacent business were not part of the consideration when we were reviewing what, if any, pedestrian improvements that they could make as part of their parking field. Primarily, we were focusing on the areas of the city ordinance and the our envisioning goals that talk about connections to County Road 42 and within the ring road. So it wasn't part of the discussion, but it is something that we can make a note of for the applicant to be aware of as they are neighboring that. But as you mentioned, they are a separate property and under separate ownership. There's an existing sidewalk connection that's there, but it would be as part of the overall mall circulation and not from that business to its own kind of parking field.
Just a thought as we were talking about sidewalks, if maybe even from the parking lot to this project, there could be an extra safe crossing from the parking lot, to provide that safer opportunity of crossing.
Great point. Do you have another one, Commissioner Timmerman?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment? Okay, you have time. You have time. It's okay. My question has to do with noticing those stairs. I'm thinking ADA accessibility. Was there an elevator in there I thought I saw?
Yes,
Okay.
there is an elevator as part of the floor plan for the internal access. The grade separation in this location and the proposed stairway, they're not proposing a ramp at this particular location. We have had it reviewed by our building official and other inspector staff, and they are aware of the changes. And the internal access in between the two floors is part of that ADA requirement. Otherwise, there are other paths on the exterior that go around that grade change that may be able to qualify for that. But I don't have a specific note within the report about their review of that. They are going to be reviewing ADA in more detail with the construction level documents that they'll have for the engineering of that sidewalk and stairs, as well as just the permit approval process. So that does come after this phase.
Okay. Commissioner Timmerman?
You may have spoken to this, but is there additional property available within the parking for them to build another outlot or anything, or is this kind of a standalone project, no additional space on this parcel?
This is considered standalone. A future applicant, whether it's associated with this developer or someone that comes in new and is interested in outlot space here, could put additional buildings on the property as part of kind of a redevelopment initiative. It would be a plan unit development amendment for any new building construction anywhere on the Burnsville Center PUD. It would require a review for any new buildings. But from what we have here, the parking itself is considered as joint parking for the entirety of the Burnsville Center plan unit development. And as it currently stands, they are meeting ordinance requirements and exceeding them for available parking. So there is availability on I would say the mall as a whole for those outlots to continue to be developed as the recent Panda Express amendment was, but there isn't anything currently proposed in this area for new construction of buildings.
Okay. I think it's just nice to talk about, this paved paradise that we can actually do something good with. So if there is that opportunity, maybe down the road.
Right. And as far as the pipe, we don't have any pushback or anything on moving the pipe. That was all agreed to by the applicant?
Chair, we're still working on that, but the plan that Ms. Madden had in the presentation, that was a rerouted pipe, so it shows me that they are agreeable to making that adjustment. There are some comments that we have to this. As you see the pipe coming from, I guess, the bottom corner or the bottom of the page, it's not fully on their property. So that how they have rerouted is on the adjacent parcel. So we've got some additional comments to work through, either finding an easement from that property owner or another little reroute to make it work. So again, it seems they're agreeable to meeting that condition.
It shouldn't be a problem.
Shouldn't be a problem, no.
Good, good. I'm sure that added a little extra cost, but, okay. Great. Any other questions, commissioners? Seeing none, we are in a public hearing. I don't believe the applicant is here, is he? Are
We
they?
have someone that is related to the team, but not the architect. So
Okay.
we have someone.
Would that person like to speak to this item at all?
At least Sarah did a phenomenal job. So thank you. A lot better than I would have. But we're very excited about this project and hopefully to be a catalyst to this revive, to revive this mall.
Great, thank you. We are in the middle of a public hearing. We're 2 weeks in, actually. Anybody that'd like to speak on this issue may feel free to come up to the lectern, or if they're on Zoom, and I don't believe there is anybody on Zoom, but if they were, they could speak to this or let the moderator know. And seeing no one come, we're in 2 weeks of public hearing at 7:05. We're rounding up. With that, I'm going to turn it back to the commission. Let's discuss. What do we think? Commissioner Awad?
I just want to make a comment. It seems like a great project.
Yes.
It's exciting to see new stuff happening there and new space being built out. Yeah. That's my only comment.
I agree. I think it could be a kick in the butt to get things moving forward as far as the mall is concerned, to see construction going on there. That's great to see. Any other comments? Commissioner Timmerman?
Good job. This is, the second of many things to come. But, yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, Ms. Madden does a fantastic job. This is very detailed. I think that this is a challenging, large-scale project that's going to hopefully be very small compared to future ones. But great job. I think it's an exciting project. Can't wait to see shovels in the ground.
Excellent. I also like making it a walkable area. That's a great, and having the paths identified by landscaping on the sides. I believe it says it's raised up. I think that's going to bring about the goals that we're looking for at the Center Village Vision. So all great things. I'm really excited about this myself. Commissioner Awad?
Would you be willing to entertain a motion?
I would entertain
Chair?
a motion.
Okay,
I would entertain
I will
that.
make a motion that we recommend to the city council approval of the planned unit development amendment for a 15,046 square foot two-story addition to the building located at 901 County Road 42 West, subject to the 9 conditions that were listed.
Great. We have a motion from Commissioner Awad. Second, Commissioner Braddock.
I will second the motion.
Second by Commissioner Braddock. All in favor of our motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And it will be on the consent agenda for our city council meeting on February the 15th. 21st. At 5:30 PM. Thank you, Ms. Madden.
Thank you.
Next, we're looking at a public hearing for the Luther Company LLC. It's Burnsville Luther Hyundai at 14700 Buck Hill Road, and it's rezoning from B3 to general commercial to B3 Plan Unit Development, Concept and Development Stage PUD for open sales and rental lot. A new 40,137 square foot dealership and parking expansion, lot expansion. Here to present is our other city planner, Deb Garros. Ms. Garros, the floor is yours.
Thank you. We do have the applicant here this evening to provide any information to you. It is a public hearing. This is Burnsville Luther Hyundai. It's one of the several dealerships in this part of the city along Buck Hill Road. They are looking to redevelop the site. The property was originally approved back in the 1980s, early 1990s as a Saturn dealership, so the use will not change. It's still an open sales rental lot dealership, but they will be redeveloping the property. So in terms of the subject site, it's a uniquely shaped parcel. Basically, there is frontage on 3 different sides. To the north, South Cross Drive, and then the actual front of the facility where people come in is along Buck Hill Road. So that would be the east face. And then on the west is really kind of the rear of the building along Burnhaven Drive. I am going to make some references to the Lemetries collision property, just because we have common lot lines here, and there are some existing retaining walls in that area and some work that's being done in terms of grading. So primarily for the site, we're looking at, again, a new dealership building. They're looking to pretty much expand the parking area. There is an existing stormwater pond back right in this area. So they're looking to basically fill in that pond, put in underground stormwater treatment facilities, and then to be able to expand the parking lot in this area. Also, the building that is proposed will be larger than the existing building that's out there. They are proposing to redevelop the site in terms of the building in 2 phases, and there's also 2 phases related to the construction of the site improvements as well. The reason for the 2 phases is just to allow them to stay open during the entire redevelopment project. So for the site, it's about 6.5 acres. The new building footprint is just over 40,000 square feet, but it's actually, the building has got a main floor and then a second floor mezzanine area. So the total square footage for the building is 47,700 plus. The impervious surface and green space really is going to remain the same on the parking lot overall. They are going to be installing a lot more green space parking islands throughout the project area, so it pretty much stays the same. The green space within the parking lot, because this is a open sales rental lot, normally the standards is 8%. They're actually going to be providing more than that, 9.6% internal green space. And their building perimeter landscaping will be at 30%, and that meets the ordinance as well. So in terms of the PUD benefits, we had suggested that the applicant consider going from a conditional use permit to a planned unit development. There are a couple of deviations that are requested, and it just is really easier to go through and memorialize some of the existing encroachments and deal with the couple of deviations going through the PUD rather than conditional use permit. So the applicant has proposed to do that, and that's why we have the rezoning part of the application from B3 to B3 planned unit development. In terms of benefits, they are looking at a substantial investment in the community. This is something where we have an existing business that's able to stay here and reinvest, so that is considered to be a positive or benefit of the project. They are providing more trees on the site than the ordinance requires, and in addition to that, they actually have been able to incorporate all of the shrubs on the site, which is pretty unique because, as you know, we've seen a lot of developments, and there's a lot of shrubs that are required, by the ordinance, and usually they're looking at, we can't quite put that many in. They have met the ordinance, so the site is really going to look very nice. They're going to be making some improvements to the driveway off of Buck Hill Road, which will not only improve the function of that, but it'll bring the width of that more into compliance with the ordinance. And I'll go into that when we get there. The location, they have an existing freestanding sign out at the site on the southeast corner, which is in a drainage and utility easement. And it's also too close to the Walser Mazda sign. As Sarah mentioned, for the last application, there's that 300-foot separation. So they will be moving that, so that gets rid of the encroachment into the easement, and it also then meets the ordinance. They're proposing an attached trash enclosure attached to the building itself. It will have a metal roof. Roofs are not required anymore for trash enclosures. So with that and the materials that they're proposing to use, that exceeds the ordinance. They're putting in electric vehicle charging stations on the site, which is a benefit. They're also adding bike racks, another benefit for the site. And they're using pervious pavers on the property, which is something that the city has, or staff, we have promoted for a long, long time. That usually isn't something that is able to be done, usually cost prohibitive. Here, they're able to do that. For the deviations, primarily they're related to screening, parking. Headlight screening is typically required, but because this is a dealership, they want to be able to have folks see the inventory, which is a reasonable request. There are a couple of areas that they need deviation from that screening standard. They're also asking for a deviation to, there's a requirement of the ordinance that at the end of rows of parking, you put in a landscape island. Part of the site is not going to be touched for the project, so they're asking not to have to tear up, existing parking lot to put in these islands, which from a staff perspective also makes sense. The last two items are not really deviations. They are things that are allowed by the ordinance, either through conditional use permit or PUD. And one of those is the use of chain link fence with slats, and that's proposed on their trash enclosure. So that, again, is something that's reasonable. And they're also proposing to have more metal on the east face of the building, 52% versus the 50% standard. Again, allowing more is available to do through the PUD process. So with this, this is the existing conditions plan. And primarily, just wanted to draw your attention to the stormwater pond in this area. This will be going away. These kind of pink, if I can get these pink lines here and along here and along the south are the existing retaining walls. And those are proposed to stay. There are some encroachments within the drainage and utility easements for those existing walls, but they're not going to be made worse. They're going to basically stay where they are. The only proposal is to further extend this retaining wall out a little bit further to the west, and they are also going to be proposing or putting some fencing on top of that, and we'll get into that. The area where I was talking about no changes really is this kind of northern area, the parking lot. No changes there. So these, at the end of these rows, they currently have striped, areas, and they're just requesting not to have to rip that up to put in new landscape islands. So that's the deviation. The other element along Buck Hill Road, and this applies to the other dealerships as well, there's a natural gas pipeline along there. So being able to plant, and have things within that easement is restricted. So again, another one of the reasons for not putting in a lot of that screening type material because of the easement. And this is the existing access, if you will. So people can drive in, one vehicle can turn into the site. When they exit the site currently, it has width for two vehicles. So you can have two vehicles, one exiting north and one exiting south at the same time. So a lot of different potential movements taking place in that area. It's nice, it's got a nice landscape island, but everybody knows what it's like driving along Buck Hill Road. So simplifying that really will, I think, provide a benefit for the project. I talked about just quickly that they are looking at two phases. For the most part, the first phase of the site, this is the demolition part of it. And again, getting rid of parking area so that they ultimately will be able to grade. And this would be the phase one grading plan. And again, really what they're doing is just filling in this area. This shows the new underground treatment system that's proposed. And then the pervious pavers are proposed in this area of the storage lot. So they do get credit for pervious pavers in terms of overall green space. So about 2% of their overall green space is the pervious pavers. And again, that's listed, using those pervious pavers is something that's listed in the ordinance as a benefit for a PUD. So this is just a color kind of rendition of what we've been looking at. It gives you a little bit better idea. The parking islands that they're going to be installing, these will all be landscaped parking islands, and then they are also adding additional landscaping and parking islands in these areas. Again, you can see the pervious pavers here, and really just filling in and expanding the parking storage and parking area in that part of the site. This will be their final demolition, and it's basically what will occur then is the rest of the site, the east part of the site, the building itself constructed in two phases. The first phase will be the west part of the project site, which is primarily where their service, their car wash, and those facilities are. And then once that's completed, they will build the east part of the building, which includes service to the south and their main showroom, offices, lounge, and visitor areas. What I want to draw your attention to on this is the final grading plan, but the extent of the construction limits is right here. So again, that's why they're requesting not to have to disturb this part of the parking lot to the north. And this is kind of a simplified architectural site plan. Again, you got the pervious pavers, the parking, they have parking along the south. Not really much is changing along the south part of the site. They will have a couple of things that are going to be happening is they are putting in pedestrian sidewalk, if you will, sections that will come out. There is a new sidewalk that is will be built within Buck Hill Road in the next couple of years. The design for that is not completed yet. So, but when that goes through, this will connect. So that's their connection to the public sidewalk system. In addition to that, they have the parking lot access, again, which is basically going to be room for one vehicle in and one vehicle out. Just to the north of that is a new display pad site. And then to the north of that, this is where they'll be putting their new entrance sign or freestanding sign for the development. And that's going to be moved from this area down here in an easement to this area, which meets setbacks and is not in a parking easement. The site itself will have 438 parking stalls. They're required to have 121, and the area kind of in the light blue is basically where their customer and employee parking is, and the rest of the site is really going to be set up more for storage for all of their vehicles. They are in the reconstruction of the entrance. They are removing, again, a couple of existing display pads, if you will, that are also within the easement. So that, again, is making that a better situation. This shows the footprint for the new building. And the retaining wall extension, they're extending it from approximately this point over to the west, and then they'll be installing decorative type fencing on top of that for pedestrian safety, and that will be basically anywhere that the retaining wall is over 2 feet in height. This is one of the exterior views of the site, and we're looking at the south side here, and then the east side here. So the entire showroom area will be encased in glass. There is a decorative metal material that will be installed along the top, and it will also continue along the service. This is the access for people driving in for their vehicles to get service. The amount of metal, again, 52% on the south, or excuse me, the east front versus the 50%. They also are, in addition to the glass, they've got another type of metal that they will use around the entry. That is something that is a dealership. It's part of their kind of business model. For the most part, the other materials on the building will be precast panels in 2 different colors, and also the, just losing it tonight. I haven't been here for a long time.
Gotta practice.
But yeah, I know, the actual, what do I want to call that? Yeah, some of they're different textures.
There you go. There you go.
Textures, okay. Already there. There we go. This is where then they will have the new trash enclosure. Again, in terms of the project itself, precast panels, this is looking from the other direction. The design elements, they're required to have 3. They're providing for actually 5. They have contrasting and complementary colors, accent materials, irregular building shape. Also the heights of the various sections, there's 3 different heights, about 28 feet little bit taller for the main part of the building, 26 feet for the entry where the showroom is, and then 21 feet for the surface area and the car wash on the north side of the building. Then this gets into the details. There is an area in front along where the service entrance is that will have burnished block along the bottom, and this will also wrap around to the south side. This is the floor plan, kind of hard to read with all the dimensions and things, but basically, again, this is the area where the showroom will be, and then you get into where the offices and places for folks to come in and visit. Some of the break rooms, et cetera, are pretty much in here. And really the rest of the facility is pretty much set up for maintenance and service type work. And then the one stall car wash on the north side. Then on top there are mezzanines. The main part is pretty much a general office area, and then some area for equipment and storage. For the landscape plan, as I had indicated, they've done a really nice job with the landscaping materials. The amount of materials meets the ordinance. The variety of materials, it's really going to have a nice look to it all year long, different seasons with different colors and types of materials that are proposed. So indicated they are putting in more trees than are typically required. Their green space exceeds the requirement for parking area, and this is something that is pretty amazing. I've worked at a lot of these car dealerships, and going beyond 8%, I mean, even getting to 8% is difficult for a lot of them, so going beyond that is really a unique thing, and it's going to be a very nice looking project. And we talked about the deviation to those parking islands to the north, and they do meet the ordinance on their overall green space, their building perimeter green space. This is just the landscaping shown outside of the showroom. So this will be a very nice entrance. And the bike racks will be in this location right up here. This is showing the access, the new access to Buck Hill Road. So this will be it's a pad that will have stamped concrete. It'll be a nice, a little bit raised pad, nice landscaping around it. And then the new sign for the facility is located here. In terms of the reason that I brought this slide is this shows kind of where the deviations are requested for screening for the parking lot. It's really these couple of areas in red, and then also along Burnhaven Drive. So it's a very small area, especially considering that this site has got these 3 street frontages. So staff is comfortable with what is proposed. In terms of the recommendations, staff is recommending approval of both the rezoning and the concept and development stage PUD. There are 9 conditions. These are relatively standard type conditions. Number 1, this first condition really relates to repealing the old CUP that's on file, and then it'll be replaced with the planned unit development. So this is just the language that the city attorney typically likes to see. And then we would be looking for number 2, for any of the existing encroachments that are within, like the gas line easement or drainage and utility easement, just that they provide a note or something from the utility company indicating that they're okay with what's in there, which hopefully they should be because it's already been in there for quite a while. That they'll need a cash security or letter of credit for the paving, concrete curb, and gutter. Prior to grading or tree removal, they'll need to work with the city's forester for an inspection. Their tree removal is below the 60%, so there is no woodland preservation that's required. They will need a cash security or letter of credit for landscaping. And then also at the time that the building permit comes in, we're going to want to see cross-sectional drawings of rooftop views. They've indicated, and it is listed on the plans, that the equipment will be screened, but we just want to get those at the time that the building permit comes in. Also, there are still, or maybe still, a few comments from the city engineer's memo that still need to be addressed. So that is item number 8. And item number 9, because of that infiltration system, the underground system, they will need to enter into a stormwater maintenance agreement. And with that, I can stand for questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ms. Garros. Questions? Commissioner Watt?
Yes, thank you for a great presentation. The cash security, the two conditions that relate to cash security, is that just a normal part of the process? I don't know that we see
Yes.
that listed in the conditions typically.
Yep. I had put that in just because more and more with various projects, people are like, once they get the building permits, like, well, what's this?
Oh, yeah.
We didn't know
no.
we need to provide a security.
Yep.
So I just,
Being clear.
there we go,
Awesome.
wherever,
Yep, no,
But it is a standard, it's from the ordinance, so.
Yeah, that was
yes,
my
but that's why
understanding that
that's
it's in there and that, and I can understand the reason you're making it clear, so thank you.
Any other questions? Again, great presentation. As far as the stormwater pond, in removing that, you said there was an underwater treatment facility. Is that the replacement for that?
Yes.
Okay. And then I wasn't familiar with the pervious pavers before, so that's where rainwater can come down and still go through so the pavement isn't basically stuck. Is that what we're looking
Yes.
at here?
Actually, we have got, at City Hall, in front of the police department, those are pervious pavers that are out there. So it's a system that's specifically built. The ground doesn't need to be of a material that will work, with that. But basically, it allows water to percolate down through the pavers. There are little holes in them, basically, and then enter the stormwater system.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Great to know. Commissioner Braddock?
Oh, sorry. Is that considered a low-impact design?
It would be, yes.
Nice. Cool.
Good deal. Great. Thank that. No other questions from commissioners. I would invite the applicant to come up and tell us a little bit about the design. We're really excited for you, by the way. If you could just state your name and
Sure.
address for the record, please.
Yeah, Steve Sobraski from Landform Professional Services. I'm the civil engineer on the project, and with me tonight is also Lyndon McGinty from the Luther Companies. And again, we're equally as excited to be here presenting this project. Deb did a great job presenting as usual here as well. And we don't have a lot more to add to this. She was pretty thorough in her presentation. One thing we did want to just again reemphasize is, we had been working with the city engineer regarding the future trail connection to Buck Hill Road. And you'll see that our initial round of submittal documents did not include that. And, we knew something was likely to come, but we weren't sure when that was going to be constructed. And we knew it was inevitable that it was going to be there. So we thought right to install the sidewalk connection to the trail now, knowing that it's likely to come in the near future. So that was a big part of this design. And through guidance through city planning staff here as well, they did lead us towards this PUD application. We didn't initially set out to do that, but the requests and the accommodations that the city was able to make were certainly reasonable, we think, and I think as a result we're able to achieve a really high quality project. One thing that we also want to note, again, it's not part of the PUD necessarily, but just the construction phasing in itself, as Deb mentioned, is going to be constructed in 2 phases. This does allow the existing business to remain operational during construction, and as we described, the shop will be built first. Existing building will remain in place with, again, appropriate construction measures in place to keep the general public out of those spaces. But as part of that, once the main or existing building comes down, we won't have a showroom in place. So we're going to have a means to sell vehicles and service the existing customer base on site. So we intend to have a temporary trailer or tent or something on the north side of the property. So the elimination or the exclusion of the islands on that north side of the property is also important. It allows us to have additional flexibility for the placement of that during construction. And then with that too, again, a note on the financial assurances. We'd still like to talk to city staff to see if there are other options in lieu of a cash payment for the sureties. If there's an option for a bond, we'd be interested in finding a way forward with that too. I know Luther is extremely anxious to get going, and the sooner we can get those things knocked out, we'll make a permanent application that would help expedite things for them. So with that, again, if you have any additional questions, we're here to answer them, and if not, we'll just stand and let you discuss.
Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Again, appreciate all the work you're doing, and especially with the city of Burnsville. The plans look beautiful. Looks like it'd be a great addition to the city down in there, and I really appreciate you being a partner, especially with the pathways and all that. Really do appreciate it. Thank you for coming in today.
Appreciate it.
With that, we are in a public hearing. It is 7:35, and I'm opening up the public hearing. See if anybody is on Zoom, or if anyone in the room or in the building would like to speak to this, they can come to the lectern and state they'd like to speak to this issue. I'm not seeing anybody coming up, and it sounds like nobody's on Zoom. So with that, I am going to go ahead and close the public hearing at, rounding up again, 7:36. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to the commissioners for discussion and maybe a recommendation for city council. Commissioners, Commissioner Timmerman.
I think it's a cool project. I think, it's updating property, moving it from the CUP to the PUD is a benefit to you and the city, in my opinion. I think the design looks good. I like that the plans are very conscientious to the environmental impacts. And then the foresight of connecting to future Buck Hill sidewalks, a very nice plan. I would support this. And with those nods, I'm also happy to make a motion.
I think they're saying that. Commissioner Timmerman, go ahead.
I'd like to move to approve, I'd like to move that we recommend to the city council that they approve the rezoning of the property from B3 general commercial to B3 PUD in concept and development stage PUD for construction of a new dealership building and site improvements at 14700 Buck Hill Road, subject to the 9 conditions that Ms. Garros outlined for us.
Outstanding. We have a motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Wad.
I will second the motion.
Second by Commissioner Wad. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It is unanimous. February 21st, 5:30, right here in these city chambers. We're going to have be on the consent agenda. So moving on, thank you so much for coming in. Congratulations. It looks like we have another public hearing, and this one is in relation to our Burnsville sanitary landfill. It's a public hearing application of BSLI Incorporated for a comprehensive plan amendment to change the landfill in-use plan text and maps from golf course to open space, and rezoning for outlet A, BSLI addition from commercial recreation plan unit development to conservancy PUD, and rezone lot 1, block 1, BSLI addition from commercial recreation PUD to general industry PUD at 2650 Cliff Road West. Here to present again, Ms. Garros, go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioners. As you're familiar, we have been working with BSLI landfill for a number of years now on various things. This is really the last part of everything that they have been doing up until this point. If you recall, the City Council approved a planned unit development for them just a couple of months ago, which basically changed the end-use plan. It allows for expansion of the landfill, both the height and then the footprint actually will be contracted a little bit. But what really is going to happen as a result of that is that instead of having a flatter surface at the top, which would have accommodated a golf course, City Council agreed with the property owner that they would rather see the expanded landfill, so hopefully they can close some of the other landfills in the Minnesota River Quadrant to come here. That'll result in more of a pyramid, so a golf course wouldn't work. I think council didn't feel that really golf courses are closing kind of all over the country. So they looked at basically allowing a different end-use plan, primarily open space type of development. So that is what is being requested. And then to implement that, we're looking at rezoning the site. The commercial recreation development land use type was established back about when this project came through in 2005, 2006. The other site that has that same designation is Buck Hill. So it's intended to be for these sites that have kind of a recreational use, maybe privately owned, but yet there's a significant, public input, regional kind of draw to these. So the subject site itself, Burnsville Landfill, is shown in yellow. There are two properties. Outlot A is the site that's located along the Minnesota River. And then Lot 1, Block 1 is primarily where the actual landfill is. And the 2006 planned unit development contemplated a golf course at the top once the landfill was completed. And this is just kind of an artistic rendering of that. With the changes and with what the City Council approved recently, basically looking to change that golf course concept to, we'll have closed landfill, which is primarily going to remain open space. This area of Outlot A is covered by a conservation easement. So this area would continue to be shown as the potential of having trail connections through here along the river, basically riverfront access, wildlife area, that type of thing. Not really a formal development or formal recreation, but more, I would say, similar to what's across the river on the XL property, where you've got habitat viewing and that type of thing. So this is the concept plan that they approved for the final end use. And then with that, for comprehensive plan amendments, we are required to send notices out to jurisdictions, other cities that abut the city, townships, counties, also the Metropolitan Council, any other like school districts, any other agencies, et cetera. So we did send out to 26 different agencies. They have a 60-day time frame to review the amendment and then to comment on that. That date has come and gone now. So we did receive back 10 responses, most of which indicating that there's didn't indicate that there would be any impact to their agencies or jurisdictions from this proposed change. We did get one response, which is a letter which is in your packet from Dakota County. And they're looking at continuing to work with the applicant and the city to try to get those regional trail connections through there, and that is shown to continue to be the case. And then they also provided a list of environmental sites, environmental concern sites. The county tracks all of these particular sites throughout all the cities within Dakota County. And there were two indications on their review, one from 1989 related to a complaint to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency about Cargill and finding a number of drums on the site. Those have been removed years ago. And then the other thing that remained on site was an aerial photo, again from 1945, so a number of years ago, again showing some issues with Port Cargill and doing some illegal, well, I shouldn't say that, some disposal.
Yeah.
And okay, it's possible. But anyway, those have been cleaned up too. And with the extensive environmental review that was done for the landfill for this expansion, none of these items have come up again. So they should have been resolved quite a number of decades ago. With that, in terms of the rezoning, the CRD is shown above. And then we're looking basically to rezone that. Conservancy is the zoning district that we would like to use for Outlot A, because that's really what it is, conservation district over that. And then the landfill would then go back to its zoning prior to the 2006 PUD, which is general industrial planned unit development. And all the adjacent properties are all zoned I2 PUD. That's a Kramer site and the McGowan site. So this will fit in. It's not something that's out of character. And then the recommendation is we're recommending to Planning Commission that the comprehensive plan amendments and the rezonings be approved. I do have the text of the, if you want to go through it, we can, but you've got that in your packet. That information has been available on the city's website for about 2 months now as well, on our landfill applications website, the actual red line language. So we have not received any comments from that. So with that, I can stand for questions.
Well, thanks again, Ms. Garros. Any questions from commissioners for city staff? Commissioner Timmerman?
Ms. Garros, I'm curious if you can provide the planning commission an update on the communication with the freeway landfill owner. And I think that, for me, anytime that I look at this particular site, it's forever going to be connected with negotiations with the freeway landfill and moving waste over to that. And I think that it would be a disservice to the people who live in our city if we don't get those updates, and these public hearings are an opportunity to do that. And so the question that I have is, what updates are there from freeway landfill and any further movement from the property owner on the site in question here with getting the garbage from that unlined landfill moved over?
Actually, Mr. McGowan had made an application for concept stage PUD. They wanted to reopen the freeway landfill and continue to bring garbage to it. They withdrew that application. The initial reviews by the agencies and the city, et cetera, indicated that that was not something that is consistent with our comprehensive plan or the legislative agenda that the council has, et cetera. So that has been removed. The MPCA is still working on the alternatives for that Superfund site and freeway dump and how they'll be cleaned up, either that dig and haul, which is what the city would like to see, dig all the garbage up and haul it to another landfill, hopefully Burnsville Sanitary Landfill, or the dig and line option. I believe that they are at the point where they have the concept plans put together for those, and then they will be going out for bid if they have not already. And once they get the bids back, at that point in time, MPCA will approach the legislature with the options, the costs, and try to obtain the approvals necessary to actually clean up the site.
Follow-up, Chair, if I may.
Go for it.
So I know that the city council every year creates their legislative priorities, and again, this was on their priorities for this year. Do we think that could happen this year? Or, I mean, I'm aware that MPCA obviously is in the driver's seat right now, but how are things looking for expediency?
That is the last that I've heard. I have not seen anything. Nothing has been introduced yet as far as the legislative session. So I don't know if they're at the point where they made it, for this year, or if they'd be looking at a next year. As far as we know, we have not received anything back from PCA on the costs associated with both of the alternatives.
Okay, real good, thank you.
Still proceeding, but just,
Good, that's what we can ask for at this point when we don't have control.
exactly, yep.
All right, any other questions, commissioners, for city staff? Included in the report was an environmental review report listing out, I'm assuming these are items that we need to, or were found. Is it found in the dump, in the landfill, or was it found, or is it just a list of items that could be there, or?
These were primarily located in this northwest corner up through here. Cargill operates through here. Cargill also has this channel that was put in, and Cargill owns these properties that are within the city of Burnsville. So the sites, they were kind of generalized, located in this area, but those are from their, I don't know that anything ever goes off their list of sites, because I think it's primarily there for folks, to do their due diligence and, oh, well, we better take a, make sure that we take a look at this area and just double check for soils, et cetera. But as I indicated, these were from their list from many years ago. And when we did the environmental assessment, environmental impact statement work, or when the applicant did this past year, there were no fines that came up or issues in that area.
So this list is more from Cargill than it is from BSLI.
Correct, yeah, that's where
Okay.
the sites, yep.
Got it.
There were reports of things that occur all over. You'll find, like any place that's ever had an oil spill or a leaking underground tank of some site, all of those types of things get recorded through Dakota County on their environmental assessment. So everything, it's just, they keep track of it, so people are at least put on notice that there was something at some point in time.
Okay. Okay, that clarifies that. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. It was interesting. I dug into the Port Cargill thing. I guess they were building ships for the Navy there. That's pretty interesting stuff back in World War II. Anyway, this is a public hearing. I believe there is the applicant here. Mr.
Yes,
Miller
Mr.
would like
Miller.
to speak to us. That would be great. If you don't want to, you don't have to.
I have nothing to say other than what Deb's already covered, unless you have questions for me.
I don't believe we do we? No? All right, well, thank you for coming in. Good to see you. With that, it is a public hearing. I'm going to open that public hearing at 7:51. Anyone that may have joined in Zoom in the last, 10 minutes? Doesn't sound like anybody did. Double check that. Ken's a funny guy. At any rate, I am going to close the hearing at 7:52. And I'm going to turn back to the commissioners to talk about any recommendations or conversations regarding the site. Seeing all kinds of hands going up. No?
Can I ask Deb another question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. Braddock.
Is there at any point when the landfill is closed and then goes through an observation period that it could too be rezoned as a conservancy zone, conservancy district?
It may be, it just kind of depends on, that is so far in the future. I think that what we need to take a look at too is, when it gets to that date, what will the MPCA allow? And the property owner Waste Management continues to own it, so it would be private. One of the things that has just come up as an example with this last review was the MPCA has new guidelines for, I forget what the name of that is. Thank you, exclusion zones. So they put up fencing all over the place to keep people away from, the areas where they could be exposed to some type of thing. So that's great. But the way that they did it also would mean that if we can't get them to modify that, or if that doesn't change when things are closed, we wouldn't be able to get our trails through, and may not be able to use, to put in our streets along the south and the east. So, just depending with what is actually out there at the time, that is a possibility to do it. But we just would need to work with whatever the regulations are at that point in time.
Got it. Thanks.
Yes.
Questions? That's all you have? Commissioners, recommendations? Mr. Raddock?
I would like to make a motion
Okay.
to recommend to the city council that they approve the comprehensive plan amendment as proposed in the red line draft and maps made part of this presentation by Deb, and approve the rezoning of Outlot A to Conservancy PUD and rezoning of Lot 1 to General Industry PUD, subject to the one condition.
All right, a motion made by Commissioner Braddock. Do I have a second? Commissioner Wad?
I will second the motion.
Second by Commissioner Wad. All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? No, it's going to end up on the consent agenda, February 21st, 5:30 here in City Hall. Thank you, Ms. Garros.
Thank you.
And we'll move to the next item on our agenda, which are updates. Any updates for you, commissioners? Seeing none, I'm going to turn to staff. Updates, Commissioner staff.
So last week at the city council, all of our commissions here at the city presented their work plans to the city council, and they had an opportunity to thank all of you volunteers for your excellent work and expertise. So that work plan, which we've seen before, was approved. For your next meeting, so that'll be on February 27th, 2 weeks from today. I do want to note that we don't have zoning code updates on that particular meeting, but we do have them coming. So one of the things that'll be happening in 2023 is that we're going to be transitioning from the end of our work with WSB as our consultant to do the zoning code updates, and it'll be transitioning fully to staff-led zoning code updates. So right now we're readjusting our timeline of when we'll be, which as you know has been adjusted before, when we'll be reviewing these ordinances and kind of getting into the public hearing phase. So the stage that we are at right now, just for your information, is the last time that we had WSB come in and speak to you about our changes, we had mentioned that we are putting everything into charts and kind of redoing the complete formatting of the kind of main chapter parts of our zoning ordinance. So that's residential, business, and industrial districts. So right now we have what is a soon-to-be final draft from our consultant of the residential chapter. And as part of that, we've combined all of our residential zoning districts into one new chapter within the city code. So what this is going to do is it's going to be eliminating certain chapters entirely. They're being combined into one. And then areas of general provisions that would apply to all residential properties are now included in that residential chapter, rather than as a second. Right now, all of our general provisions are a completely separate chapter in the city code. So we're doing a lot of pretty significant cuts, and things have had to be reviewed rather than, as we had originally planned, kind of chapter by chapter by chapter. Instead, we've been reviewing all of the chapters at once and cutting and pasting essentially everything into the new table of contents and format before we can even work on actual revisions to the content of what we want to change as far as regulations. So we have that soon to be final draft from them. That is the new residential only chapter. We have given all of our internal development review team that reviews all of the development applications, as well as kind of some other staff across the city, about a month for them to provide comments on this last draft before it will be posted online again for all of the commissions and zoning code task force to look at. And then it will be brought forward for a final meeting at the Planning Commission, probably sometime either the end of March or beginning of April. So we're still finalizing that schedule. That won't be the public hearing date for that ordinance. We'll have that one meeting to discuss the actual inaction of those revisions that we've been talking about with you before we take in all of your kind of next round of feedback, incorporate it, and publish for the actual public hearing to adopt the new residential standards. So that's kind of what's going on with zoning code update. And we're kind of preparing, now that we've done kind of that year of that roadblock of actually restructuring the ordinance with our consultant. After that, we're going to start moving in to all of the new chapters pretty quickly after that, kind of phasing it in. So I know that it's been a big talking point the last 2 years and kind of limited actual visuals on the code, but we're finally getting to a point where we can set up a schedule and get to these chapters. So I just wanted to give that update to you. Other than that, I do not have any updates this evening. Do you have any, Deb?
Nope, that would be it.
All right.
Really.
Thank you, Commissioner Timmerman.
Ms. Madden, was this a planned phasing to the staff? Or was this a termination of a contract?
No, this is, well, it is, the original contract was money that was set aside specifically for the zoning code update in the budget, and that continuance of money to be put into that pot for our department to utilize a consultant for the zoning code update was not approved in the 2023 budget, so we do not have the funds to continue utilizing a consultant. for it. And so the zoning code update, the city code update through the code review task force is done entirely by staff and has been this entire time. It's been a staff and city attorney work, so it's been the clerk's office primarily. So we'll be transitioning to what they are doing, where it's fully staff-led, and I guess for your information, you'll be seeing a lot more of our consultants for our development review side as we kind of move forward and change the way that we're processing our applications. So I'll be running the zoning code updates as the kind of lead staff on it. And then Deb and myself, Kevin, and our consultants will be working on other review applications that the Planning Commission will see this year.
Thanks for filling in.
My pleasure.
We're trying to simplify an ordinance that has been pieced together for decades. So trying to get, everything residential is here, so people have more of a one-stop type shop, and it makes, more sense. More tables, more illustrations, those kinds of things, so we're hoping
You
it
had us all
will be
excited,
better.
we
I
haven't
don't-
heard, so I think that's a
We're
good
still
update,
working
yeah.
on it.
Yeah. We'll be looking
Yeah.
forward to seeing more of it.
And we'll pay
It
you
will
with
be
our,
coming.
we'll pay you with our appreciation. Thank you for all the work you're putting towards it. It actually will be a good finished product when all said and done, so thank you. I also, extending what Ms. Madden was talking about, I did present in front of City Council. They really appreciate the work that we've done over the last year, and they really enjoy coming, watching the meetings and being able to see our dialogue. They said we do a very good job of that, and I would definitely second that. We are a very vocal group, and letting people know what our thoughts are as far as trying to come up with these recommendations and ensuring that everybody gets a full breadth of what we're voting on, rather than just saying yay or nay. We tell them what we think, and they appreciate that greatly. So with that, it takes us to our next item on the agenda, which is adjournment. Do I have a motion? Commissioner Wad,
I move that we adjourn.
moved by Commissioner Wad. Do I have a second? Commissioner Braddock, second by Commissioner Braddock. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Have a great night.